Have you ever spent days upon days going back and forth on a decision that should have taken you like 15 minutes to make? If so, I need you to hear this. Now, your brain is running a really old safety program right now, and actually most business owners go for years without actually ever clocking what it actually is and what's actually happening. Because I watched this exact pattern take a founder, she was one of my clients, from stuck at £7,000 a month to breaking past £10,000 a month. And honestly, it had nothing to do with her strategy. So a lot of people think that overthinking is a willpower thing, right? Like if we just tried harder, we got more organized, or if we found the right productivity app, we would just stop doing it. Or perhaps we think it's actually part of our personality and that's just who we are. And I used to think that too before I did the work on myself, until I actually understood what the brain is actually doing when it spirals like this. And then I saw how much it completely changed me and the work that I do with my clients. Because it turns out that overthinking is actually your brain being hypervigilant, right? It's scanning for danger rather than you being lazy. Now, one of my clients, she had built a proper business, right? She was earning £7,000 a month. She was established, all right, which a lot of people would be thrilled with, right? But she was completely stuck under that £10,000 mark. And it wasn't anything to do with her strategy or the number of ideas she had. If anything, she actually had too many ideas. She'd end up in one direction and she'd feel really excited about it and she'd start moving on it. And then somewhere around day 2, she'd start picking that idea apart, right? She'd say to herself, okay, no, what if this isn't the right thing to do? What if I should be doing the other thing instead? And then she'd switch over into a new idea. And then a few days into the new idea, the same thing would happen again. She'd talk herself out of that one as well. And then she'd circle back to the original idea that she'd already gone through and the one she had already abandoned. Let me know if this sounds familiar. Now, she described it to me as like brain fog, right? She physically could not think clearly enough along which route to go down. And what was really infuriating for her was the actual task itself, whichever one she had gone for, it would always end up taking her 10 times longer than what it should have because she wasn't spending her time doing the actual work. Now, this can be exactly what happens when a founder's brain hits a growth ceiling, right? And I want to explain why. Now, there's a part of your brain called the default mode network. Now, think of it as the part that switches on the moment you stop actively focusing on something in front of you and it starts scanning instead, all right? It will replay conversations, it will run scenarios, it will check for threats. Now, some people may think that overthinking works like a dopamine spiral, right? The same way that scrolling your phone does, but that's not what's actually going on. All right. Instead, your brain has decided that the decision that you're thinking about is dangerous. All right. And your brain doesn't want to let you move until it's checked every single angle. So think of it as running a threat loop, not a reward loop. So when my £7,000 a month client was flipping between ideas for like days and weeks on end, it wasn't that her brain was being indecisive for the sake of it, but it had flagged growing the business past that £10,000 mark as unsafe territory. It meant new pricing, it meant more visibility, it meant bigger promises to clients. And all of that reads to an old part of the brain as risky and dangerous. And when the brain thinks that something is risky and dangerous, it gives you noise. And its plan is to get you to stay exactly where you are, which feels safe, which is familiar, even though that's not logically what you want. And it could be costing you thousands every single month. And that's why my client described it as brain fog, right? Because that's actually quite an accurate description of what's happening physically. When your brain is on high alert like that, it starts pulling resources away from the parts responsible for things like your creative thinking, your clear decision making, and it sends them somewhere else instead. So what's happening is your brain is running on like a lower setting whilst it's busy trying to keep you safe. Now, when the nervous system senses a threat, it's got a few different ways of responding. Some people might fight it, so they might push harder to prove the fear wrong. Some people flee into doing busy work, not necessarily income generating things, but tasks that make them feel busy. So every time my client picked a direction to go in and thought about it, some part of her brain actually went looking for evidence that it was the wrong idea. all right, found something and then pulled her back out again. And this just goes round in a vicious circle, because what the brain is doing is it's trying to stop you from finishing your task. Because if you finish your task and you had decided on something, it meant that you could go through to your next income level, which screams danger for your brain. And this is a really clever nervous system response, all right? Her nervous system was actively keeping her from deciding because some part of her had linked growth with danger long ago, back when she was a child. And this can actually be a really sneaky strategy on our brain's part, because a lot of the time it doesn't even look like we are stuck. It just looks like being busy, right? Jumping from one strategy to the next, signing up for another course, changing the plan again, going with a different social media platform, right? Because following a new set of rules gives our brain a little hit of safety, right? Even when nothing's actually moving, it still feels like progress because we feel busy, but it's actually not. It's just another way of avoiding finishing the task. Now, when I worked with my client and we found the actual root cause of where that association had come from, and with my work, we go into the proper subconscious work. It's the deep work, right? It's not just general mindset tips. Something shifted almost immediately. Literally within a matter of weeks, she had stopped overthinking things. She'd stopped switching ideas, right? She picked a direction she wanted to go in and she stayed on it, because what had happened was her brain had stopped treating that decision as a threat. Now, this is why doing the deep subconscious work and finding the root cause is so much more powerful than just willpower. Now, you can't just delete an old pattern once it's been wired into the brain, right? What we're actually doing in my work is we're building a new one strong enough that the brain starts reaching for that one instead on its own without you having to force it. I'm giving my clients a new neural pathway to default to, not the old one. And that's why years working on her strategy alone never fixed things for her, right? She already knew what to do. She had known it for months. The knowing, her knowledge, wasn't the problem. So this is the one thing I wish every founder understood before they buy another course or hire another business coach. Right? If you already know what you should be doing and you still can't make yourself do it, that's your nervous system doing exactly what it's designed to do, protecting you from something that it's decided is dangerous, even when that something is literally just growing your business. Your nervous system is seeing that as a real life threat. So if you're sat there thinking, I also overthink a lot, especially in my business, just know that the thing that actually helps is finding the belief sitting underneath all the noise in your brain, right? Because a thought like, what if this isn't the right idea? It's never really about the idea. It's whatever belief is underneath it that comes from the actual root cause. And until that's addressed, you're going to keep circling the same ideas, no matter how good your strategy is, no matter how good your business coach is. And that's the actual work I do inside my coaching, finding that root cause and clearing it so that your brain stops fighting you all the time on the things that you actually want. And I just wanted to give you one thing that you can try tonight. Now, next time you catch yourself spiraling on a decision, overthinking, just try picturing that voice as if it belongs to someone else standing in front of you. Just someone talking. And notice what it's actually saying. And usually it's some version of the voice saying, you're going to get this wrong, or who do you think you are? Now, once you hear it as a separate voice rather than as the truth, it actually gets a lot easier to ask a simple question back. You can ask it, is this actually true? Or is this just my old program running again? Now, thinking that alone isn't going to fix it permanently, but it gives you enough space to stop the overthinking in the moment, and it helps you to make a quicker decision. Now, if any of this is landing for you and you feel this is exactly what is happening in your business, you're stuck at a certain income level and you want to grow, I would genuinely love to talk it through with you. There's a link below to book a call with me. No pressure, just a proper conversation about what's actually keeping you stuck. I'll see you in the next video.